Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inflectra's test automation series called UI Automation 101, where we will be exploring how to best automate interactions with basic UI features. You are joining us for the fourth webinar in this series, and today's topic is ways to leverage RVL. Today's webinar will be presented by Alexey Grinevich, a senior software developer at Inflectra. He holds a doctorate in applied mathematics and has been working in the IT industry for the past 20 years. For the last 10 years, his major interests have been automated testing, legacy APIs, and desktop system testing. My name is Teresa, and I'll be your moderator today. Before I turn it over to Alexey, let's cover a few housekeeping issues. Today's webinar will last for about an hour and will consist of both theoretical and practical parts and end with a Q&A session. We ask that you save your questions until that time and use the built-in questions tab to send questions. These will then be read out and answered. Today's webinar will be recorded. In a couple of days, we'll make the webinar recording available on Inflectra's YouTube channel under the playlist called UI Automation 101. Links to each webinar recording will be emailed to you a few days after the live webinar. Or you can subscribe to Inflectra's YouTube channel to get notified when new recordings become available. Just to give you a little more information about the webinar series as a whole, UI Automation 101 is a 5-part series focusing on different aspects of UI design. A key component to successful test automation is understanding and aligning the UI interaction points and capabilities with the test automation tool strengths. During this 5-part series, we will focus on specific aspects of UI design. This series is running in parallel with our webinar series titled MS Dynamics UI Testing. This UI Automation 101 series is an excellent companion to that series. For those of you not familiar with our test automation webinars, we recommend that you check out our previous 2 series, Test Automation Demystified and Planet Test Automation First Steps, both of which are available on our YouTube channel. Last but not least, as I mentioned earlier, each webinar in the series has a practical part. We will demonstrate the key practical test automation concepts using Inflectra's own platform, Rapise. If you haven't downloaded the tool yet, please visit www.inflectra.com/Rapise. Feel free to use Inflectra's 30-day free trial. And with that out of the way, I'll turn it over to our presenter, Alexey.
Thank you, Teresa. My name is Alexey, and let's start today's webinar from a short overview of what we are going to look at today. So there is no theoretical part, since we are talking about different aspects of RVL itself as a language. So it would be more interesting to just look at how specific things may be achieved and what advanced things or may be done, or how to bypass some things that some of our users find annoying, and we have workarounds for those. So we are going to look at various different things, and there is no systematic overview of what aspect we are looking today at. We look at different things, and so let's go. I'm closing my video to save screen space, and we are ready to go. So we are going to cover these 7 tricks one by one, and then summarize our knowledge shortly in the end. So first thing is conditions and assertions and syntax. So here we have a very good example as is if statement or assertion. Each of them have a condition that is checked during the execution. I'm just creating a new test to show this. So it's new, clean, empty test, and I'm adding an assertion. As usual, I'm just typing few first keys and hit tab, and whole assertion statement appears. So, and so some people find this syntax redundant because it takes 1, 2, 3, 4 lines for the whole assertion. And for such cases, so this syntax is good when you are a beginner. So it's good if you want if you're not familiar with language yet. So the less syntax tricks you have at this point, the better. But then when you have longer scripts, it's good to be able to somehow make shorter syntax of what compared to what we see on the screen. And this feature is already described in documentation. So I'm going to rapisedoc.inflectra.com, go to RVL, and in RVL, there is a topic conditions that has final chapter short condition syntax. And this is what I'm going to show you now. So when we have a condition, it has 3 parts. First is first parameter to condition, then comparison statement, which may use different operations to compare. And finally, there is last parameter to the condition. And what we may do, we may take this last parameter, copy it, and paste it here. I'm keeping Shift K pressed when I'm pasting because otherwise it would add a new line here. So this way I have exactly the same condition, but last parameter is combined with condition statement. For some people, they find it less readable, but it's more concise syntax. So if you have many conditions or many if statements, exactly the same is true for if statement, branch statement. This helps to make more concise syntax and have your scripts to be shorter. So that was feature number 1, short condition syntax. Now we move into next, which is array parameter. Again, I'm creating a new test. It would be desktop test. It's something really local. And now let me type same assertion or message statement, for example, tester message. So I'm going to make some output. Suppose that I have a number of variables defined before. First name, and we have some long script between line 5 and 4. There are some many statements recorded or written manually somewhere. And then I want to output the first name and last name to have these values available in the report. So yeah, when reviewing the report, I may see which user were used for execution. So what I'm doing, what I can do, old syntax is, okay, I may output first name. This would output just the word for 2 words, first name. Then I may do tester message. And here, instead of string, I would use variable first name. Then tester message. I'm using tab, and I'm mostly not using mouse. I'm using only a keyboard. So the same may be done with mouse. Last space name. And now let me do the same just with mouse, just to see the difference. Tester. A message. And here I would use a variable and variable name, last name. So I used both ways to enter statements. So now I may just, so this way I do output first name, its value, last name, label, and the name, the value of last name. And if I play this script, so what I see, my output statement takes 4 lines, which is unavoidable. But the side effect is that I have 4 lines in the report, and this is not really friendly for reading. What I would love to have is to combine these lines to have this output as a single line. And there is a feature in Rapise that allows that. So I'm going to use the same command, tester message, and I'm going to use a feature also described here. So let me scroll and show it from the beginning. RVL, here I have parameters section, and in the middle I have Parameterize. And this describes this feature. So when I want to combine several values inside the same parameter, I may repeat the same parameter name several times. This is what I'm going to do right now. So string is first name colon. Then I just type message, the same parameter name again. And this would mean that before executing this statement, Rapise would combine, RVL would combine these 2 parameters into the single string and pass it to the function as a single message parameter, not as 4 different parameters. Variable first name. I'm just repeating this again, copy, paste. You see, when I put the parameter name here in the empty row, Rapise automatically inserts this param option to the type column. So this is like a fast way to enter for situations like this one. So here we have a string, last name, like that. Here I paste parameter, variable last name. That's it. Now let's play and compare the output of for both cases. In first case, we have these 4 lines in the output, and for the second tester message, we have all output combined in a single line. So this is handy, useful way for passing and writing something to report. And this is not only for tester message, this is for actually majority of different functions, and just you may use it while you remember that this syntax combines the parameters, consequent parameters having the same name together before passing them to the function. Okay, this is about array parameters. Next feature, adding next parameter. Let me create a new test. It would be, again, desktop test. So suppose I have command like global do launch. Actually, global do launch has several parameters. So if I hit help, I may see that in global do launch there are 1, 2, 3, 4 parameters. This one is required, first one is required, and others are optional. There are different ways of how to add optional parameters. One is to use params button. It would add all the parameters of the function, all the optional parameters. Although in many cases, this is not what is needed, because sometimes I don't need all parameters. I just need maybe a couple of them, 2 first parameters or 3 first parameters. So I may save space by removing those. So one way is to do exactly the way I just did it. Press params and then remove redundant params. Another way is to use a drop down here. So if I click in the param name column right under the last parameter in the function, and if I click the drop down, it suggests me the next parameter known for this function, for the case I want to pass its value. And when I select it, it actually inserts its default value. So working directory default value is current directory, which is dot. And the same is applicable to other parameters. So I may insert them one by one. Another way of doing the same, and this way is enabled in Rapise 6.4, which appears this week. So suppose we have a situation, for example, you recorded something or you have longer script. So you have do launch and then do click. And you know that you need to add a couple more parameters to this do launch statement because it's required for your script. So old way were to add a row here, or and then select a parameter like I just did. If I need one more parameter, I may do it the same way. Add a row and select the drop down. So this appears to require several clicks for each parameter. Another option, of course, is to use params, but this would require then removing redundant parameters and then filling the values. And there is one more way. So suppose I have do launch here. If I stay here at the param value, I could just specify it, or I just clicked it. It doesn't matter. And I'm pressing on Shift and Enter. What's happening is it's automatically inserting a new line after this one. It jumps to the cell param name and suggests me the next parameter. So this is a useful way to insert additional parameter in between current action and next action when I have no empty rows between them. So this is like a fastest way, and sometimes it's very useful when you are editing your scripts. Of course, if you want to remove parameters, you may still use that statement. So Shift plus Enter here, and select parameter name is quickest way for adding a parameter. Moving to the next. No, this one. Passing parameters to sheets. I'm going to create another new test. And it would be web test because I'm going to work with library information system. I'm opening it in Firefox. And here I'm going to choose Firefox as the browser used for recording and playback for this test. Of course, the language is RVL. Okay, so let me start from adding a new sheet, and I will call it login. So I plan to implement the login logic on this sheet from the very beginning. I'm recording some actions. It tried to open Firefox, but it looks like PDF is more powerful, and it didn't let Firefox to show up. And when I clicked here, you see expanding it recorded as additional click. I don't need this one. I'm going to simply remove this because it's not part of my script. It's just preparation step. So I hit login, click on username, type librarian, type the password for librarian, click login, and click logout. I finish my recording, and I'm appending this recording to the login sheet. So this would be a part of login logic. So I have a simple login logout script. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to parameterize it from the beginning. I don't want this librarian to be hard-coded here. So first level of making it parameterizable, I'm going to introduce variables. First variable would be login. Let it be borrower, different username. And you see this variable is has a yellow background. If I have variable somewhere here, you may see it has no yellow background. Yellow background means this variable is a part of preamble, and this would be important for the following steps. I'm just going to also move this variable into the preamble by copying and pasting it. And I'm going to use variable values instead of hard-coded values. So instead of librarian, I'm going to refer to variable login variable, and variable password. So this script is going to use variable values to feed data into the application. Let me play this sheet. And you see it enters borrower, the value of the variable, not librarian that we used during recording. So my script is now parameterized. Now I want, so if I now just use the play button, play the whole script, actually nothing will happen. Nothing happens because this default behavior is Rapise script executes RVL sheet. And since RVL sheet is currently empty, then nothing is done. If I want to do login as a part of RVL sheet, I need to call it explicitly. So I'm going to use RVL object, this one, RVL, and it has do play sheet. All I need is to specify the sheet name login in this case. Okay. Now I'm just pressing play. And my script will be executed with borrower just like before. Okay. Now the core feature of this chapter, I want execute this login sheet with different input user names. So I want to control which user it will use as login. And I may easily do this. So Again, since we have a preamble and some variables, the built-in feature is that do-place sheet allows us to specify custom values for these variables instead of ones defined here. So I may simply override these values when calling this sheet, and so the sheet will use the passed in values. What I need to do is I need to specify parameters with names matching the names of variables. For example, I'm taking login name here, pasting it. It becomes additional param because when I type something to param name, Rapise automatically inserts param here. Let it be string and let it be borrower. Oh, borrower is here. Let me use different librarian or just other user. So when I hit play or when I do play this sheet for the RVL sheet, you see it uses other login, other user. So the value that were passed from this sheet. Okay, I'm going to use a librarian here, and also I want to specify password. So for passwords, you see this password is specified here as plain text. It's not good for some cases, so I have an option to say password, and my password becomes encrypted. And it's encrypted, and I cannot simply decrypt it back. So once it's encrypted, it stays in this way. So and if I need to change it, I will have to type to type it again, to type the new value again. This is a feature appeared in Rapise 6.3. So here I, for now, want to pass new value for password. Password, let it be just plain string for the beginning. Librarian. So if everything works correctly, it should now work as librarian, and login successfully. Librarian, login, and login is successful when logged out. So you see, when I execute this sheet, it uses the borrower, which is the value defined on this sheet. But if I execute RVL sheet, it would actually pass new values for these variables, and these values will be used. Actually, I may also encrypt the value here, just like I did it there, but it still will work properly for librarian. So this is all about the chapter about passing parameters. Next topic is extra columns. We already demonstrated this feature before, and we demonstrated the knowledge base article explaining how to specify custom report attributes using custom columns. There were an older topic using extra columns in RVL, and it contains an example. So you may find a video about it and see how it works. Today I have a fresh example because we were asked on how to have more fine-grained control over screenshot capabilities. So the task is we have some long script and we want to specify where to make screenshots and where to not make screenshots, because if we do screenshots all the time, these screenshots may take too much space. So we enabled it through the additional column, and you may find it by going to this KB 537 article, and there is a link to our GitHub with Rapise samples, this one, and I'm just going to download this sample right now. I'm opening it. So I opened the zip file, but to open it in Rapise, I need to uncompress it. So I'm taking contents of this zip file and drag them to the desktop. So now I have my test here. I may go inside it, inside the folder, and click on test main file to open it in Rapise. And I may close all the tests which I don't need. So we have a test, and if we look at it, it's doing some calculator actions. Let me remove this redundant column for now. So these are default 7 columns of RVL, and we are doing simple calculator things. Press 1, press plus, or press 2, press equals, and compare that result equals to 3. So very simple things. Suppose that I want to control when to take screenshots while doing these operations. And what I know is that RVL has these HI columns that I may use for this purpose. So, and this is what is done in this script. So we enabled the H column to contain some additional information and attached a logic to it. So we have some letters here in the H column. For each row having the action as a type, it would check the contents of the H row. If H cell has B, this means do screenshot before doing action. So it would locate the object 1, the button 1, and do screenshot before doing do click. Then it may have a letter A, which means after. So in this row, we have action. It would locate object 2, click on it, and then do a screenshot after doing the click A. Finally, we click on the equals button. And here we have B and A, both B and A. This means do screenshot before doing the click, and then do another screenshot right after doing the click. Next feature is you see this O or W. O means the object. So when we decide to do screenshot before, we see if there is an O button and O character here, and if it's here, it means that the capture only the object itself, not the window, not the whole screen, but just the object to have shorter screenshot. Here we also have O, so it would capture only the object. Here we have W, and this means capture the window containing the object. So it would take application window, which usually a bit less than the whole screen or much less than the whole screen, but not the whole screen. And here we have neither O nor W, and this means capture the whole desktop. All that seen on the screen will be captured in this screenshot. So if I now play it, as it's doing its operations, clicking buttons, So, and I'm getting this report. So first, I have screenshot captured before clicking on one, and this screenshot contains only the one button itself. Then I have another screenshot made after doing do-click for this action, and this screenshot contains two buttons, and I see cursor under it. So it just did the click, and mouse cursor stays over this button before moving to the next statement. Then I have an equals, click on the equals button, and I have two screenshots here, before clicking on equals and after clicking on equals. And both of them contain the whole window. The window of the calculator. Finally, I have another screenshot here after pressing on the equals second time, and this screenshot contains the whole window, the whole screen. I'm sorry, the whole computer screen. So this way, we may do screenshot in more concise and clear way for the case when it's really important. And alternative way without column would be to directly use available API like tester, capture, for example, object image, specify caption to put into the report, and then object ID to use, like object one. And this takes 2 lines, and this would also take 2 lines. This would take 2 lines before and 2 lines after. So this makes the script less readable due to these redundant operations. So this extra column may be used that way to enable such a functionality. The magic behind this extra column is defined here in the function. This function is available here on the GitHub. So you may just go here, copy it to your test, contents of the function test, and this magic becomes immediately available for you. So this is another trick that RVL enables, and that allows you to have some advanced things. So to summarize, you may actually use more than one column. You may use column I and column J and specify additional features related to that, such as mapping to requirements, such as some additional reporting features, and control them by specifying values right here. So we have one more example available, and I believe depending on requirements of your test frameworks, you may find more funny ways of using these extra columns. Okay, moving to next chapter which is passing maps as variables. So RVL map defines some set of values. And luckily, we may use maps as usual variables and pass them between sheets. And there is a topic in Rapise knowledge base passing map as a parameter into the RVL sheet. Again, this topic leads to points to GitHub. I may simply download this example, because usually what we have here is some working example. Let me close File Explorer, open this file. Again, it's a zip package. I need to unpack it. I am doing it this way, moving contents here. Now I'm going to close Rapise and open my test in new instance of Rapise. Here we have an RVL with 2 sheets. So this is a simple sheet doing the loop over the map. So we have a map defined. It's very short. It has only one row with data, and it loops through this data. And if I play this sheet, it outputs exactly one line, one user, one pass. Now, sometimes I have bigger maps, I have databases, I want to attach to them, I want to execute with them. So there's one way that we usually explain defining the same map, the map with same name, but coming from different source. And in this case, it overrides the first map and then uses values from them. But there is another way which is handy for frameworks. I may simply pass you override the whole map with all its values, and this whole map will be used in this loop. Since my map has yellow background, it is a part of preamble. So if I define something with the same name, login names, it would override the whole map. And this is what I'm doing here. I have another map with more rows. In this case, it's an inline map, rows map, but it could be database map, external spreadsheet map, and anything like that. So I have this map, and what I'm doing here, I'm using RVL do-play sheet, and then I specify login names parameter, which is matching login names map name. So it would simply override the whole map, and new value for this whole map would be the value of many rows. Expression is a magic, is kind of magic here, because many rows is a type of object. It's like a custom object, and simply this whole line is a way to override the login names map with actual many rows map when this map is executed using do play sheet. So let me simply play the whole test, which means play the RVL sheet, and I will see the result. So you see that compared to previous example, we have 4 lines in the output, which means I used another map, this map values instead of these map values. So some of you may find this useful. So this approach is useful for making bigger tests, because it's easy to work and debug with such a short script. So when I need to focus on this functionality or fix something within this functionality, I may use do-play sheet here. I may use very short map. I may redefine some of its values if I know that there are some problems with applications with these values, and quickly debug and fix my logic. And once my logic is working properly and fixed, I may use another sheet which is passing like more data, more values here into this sheet, and executing with more massive load with more options and more input parameters. One more feature. Suppose this is last topic for today is expression param type. I just used expression to pass a map here. It was like a part of trick, which you simply need to know. There is no need to dive around this. But sometimes expression type may be useful by itself. Expression means some valid JavaScript expression or statement, which is evaluated using the JavaScript engine and then used as a parameter value. So suppose that we have big test framework with with a lot of data defined, and at some point it uses it's having some login logic, and at some point application changes, and now in addition to username and password, it requires an email. So we need to pass email into this function. The value of this email, is not really important. The only thing that's because no one is going to send actual mails there. These are just mascots, they're testing users. But these emails should be unique, so they should appear here in this logic. So I need to somehow produce this email value. What I want to do, I want to use the value of this user and then append @ and some domain name like example.com. So let me do this here. I'm going to add a couple of lines. I'm defining the variable username and simply assign the current value from the map. Login names, user. Now I define another variable email, and its type will be an expression. And this email would contain username. I simply use it as is because it is a variable, and in JavaScript I use variable by their name. Then I append a string. It's a JavaScript syntax at example.com. So now I may append this email to my script logic. This is just a mocking script. So we are not doing login. We just I'm putting them to output, but in real life it would be doing some kind of login logic. String email message variable email. So if I play just this sheet, you see it outputs username, password, and email, one user at example.com. Now, since here I have just one user and I want to have more of them, I need to do this assignment inside the loop. So I may simply cut this couple of lines and paste them here. So for every time we switch to the next loop, it will change the row, it would reassign the username and produce new email name, email address. So if I now play the whole RVL, it would output email address for each of our users. And this JavaScript syntax actually provides rich number of options. For example, I may modify this string in any way that JavaScript allows it. I may call some function, or I may, for example, make it uppercase. It's a built-in JavaScript feature for strings. So now all my emails will have uppercased name before the @ sign. So sometimes this type of syntax allows to save several rows of RVL logic by having such kind of one-liners, and sometimes it helps to save a space and your time on developing something. So this was the last trick for today. Let me shortly summarize what we did today. So I wanted to prove that RVL itself is a flexible language, and it has It's designed to be extensible, flexible, and have more and more features in the future. And these features may be added by you and used by you depending on your needs. We didn't cover all the cool features we could cover in such kind of webinar. Actually, if we go here to Rapise docs, we have a lot of the knowledge base, and some significant % of these articles are related to different RVL tricks that we may use here. So there are plenty of various features. If you show some interest in what we have shown today, we may have more webinars like this one showing you different tricks related to RVL as a language. We didn't cover, for example, we didn't cover such things as parallel execution, reporting options, more advanced maps, some maintainability features, and some features related to framework design. So we could cover more of that in webinars like that. So I just wanted you to make you sure that there are such features, and RVL is worth studying because it helps you real power and capabilities of implementing really flexible and sophisticated automated tests. So this is all from my side. I just wanted you to invite you to the next webinar. Information about it is here, but I believe Teresa will introduce it in more details. And that's all from my side. Teresa, I'm passing over to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Alexey, for that presentation. I think our colleague Dennis has joined us for some questions.
Right. So far we have one question. You may ask more if you have those questions. Use questions pane in the GoToWebinar. The first question is, can I have more than one RVL sheet in my test?
Okay, usually I think this question was asked in the beginning of this webinar because yes, the answer is yes, and we've shown how to have more than one sheet in every second.
I think the question not about the sheet, but about the RVL spreadsheet.
Oh, okay, good questions. So yeah, we may have more than one spreadsheet within the same test. So I may simply clone this Excel file. Let me open it in File Explorer. Let me simply copy this whole workbook, call it another RVL, and here I'm adding it to my test. So now I have two RVLs. One is main, and this one is another. And for example, main one may call another using RVL do play script. Script path would be another. And I may also specify additional parameters. I may specify sheet name here, which is, for example, test logins. And I may specify same additional parameter. So it would execute the same script. One will be executed from this RVL workbook, and another would be executed from this one. They are now identical, so they would produce the same result twice.
Okay, thank you for the answer. No more questions. So, Teresa?
All right. Thank you so much, Dennis, for moderating the questions, and Alexey for today's presentation. Just to wrap up here, we'll send out an email in a couple of days with a link to the recording of the webinar. We hope that you'll join us for the next webinar in this series, UI Automation 101, and that topic will be 5 ways to use Rapise frameworks. That webinar is scheduled for Wednesday, June 10th at 10 a.m. If you're interested in the companion MS Dynamics UI testing series, please plan to attend the 3rd in that series called How to Test MS Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations through the UI like a Pro. And that webinar will be Wednesday, May 27th at 10 a.m. But until then, thank you to Alexey, thank you to Dennis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa.
And thanks for watching.